Greetings! Welcome back to Old Ways Rising Farm YouTube channel. And we are finally done with our crooked knife blade, and it's time to start thinking about the handle. Right? So we've assembled all of the materials. We have our rope ready. We have our mastic ready. Now let's start inletting. The first thing I want to talk about is the material that we're using for this handle. In my original, it was a natural crook of hop-horn beam. This is an extremely hard wood, right? And it is a natural crook, so the grain runs the length of it. So there's no plane of weakness in here. Right? For this one, I want to carve it from a block so I have a little bit more freedom in maximizing all of the ergonomics of it. And then I could use this as a, model to go and look for other crooks, potentially for other ones. But in order to have a wood, which, the grain is vertical here, and when I carve this thumb rest, there's not going to be a ton of force, but this is a bushcraft survival type knife, right? So it needs to be durable. And I need a wood which has a structure which allows it to retain its strength, even though I have some short grain. Okay? That wood is elm. Elm doesn't split. If you've ever tried to split firewood and you hit elm with an axe, it is not going to be fun times, right? Why doesn't it split? And the answer is it has interlocking grain. So this is an elm log that somebody split, no doubt with hydraulics, for a piece of firewood, and I saved aside because it really shows this gnarly interlocking grain. Like, they were eventually able to shear their way through it, but if you look, it is, the wedge end was probably here, so it just kind of sheared some of that. But once it got in, you see how it's undulating here? High, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, right? And if you look at the end, this is just all torn out, but still firmly attached to the piece, right? It doesn't split. The grain just weaves together across itself. So that makes it really good for this sort of application where I have a little piece kind of hanging off a bit, but I don't want to have a plane of weakness in there. Right? Could I cut cross grain on a boomerang, throw it against a tree, and have it survive? No. Right? It's still wood. It still has its limitations. But in this sort of thing, if you're making furniture where you have some, woogity pieces, chair seats is a classic use. So the chair seat is basically split proof. And something like this where I have a little bit of short grain but not too atrocious. It's a really good wood. And that resistance to splitting will help with the strength of the piece overall. Okay? This is a very light colored piece. Some elm can be kind of on the reddish side. I'm not sure what species this is. This is from a 2-inch board. I talked to one of our local sawmills, and they had a log that all the bark had already fallen off, and they cut it up for me. So, really happy to get that. And this is one of the. It is a sapwood piece from one of the boards that won't really be good for a board, but certainly has some nice wood in it for this sort of project. So I can't tell you exactly what type it is. It's very light, which kind of argues for American elm, but it's soft. It's very, very, very easy to dent with my fingernail, which kind of argues for red elm. I'm not sure which it is, right? But it's elm. And it's really pretty wood. It has a really nice subtle herringbone pattern in the grain. So I like it. Beautiful, beautiful wood. Now, we need to inlet this. This goes down, okay, and this mounts, if you see, the blade mounts flush with the bottom of the handle, okay? So I'm going to take the flat sawn surface and use that as the bottom when I'm holding it, and then this part that's a little rough, that will be rounded off and much shorter anyway. We're done. To do this with the pine mastic that we're going to use, this inletting job needs to be quality. Remember, pine resin mastic is not epoxy. Not epoxy. It will help hold this in, but you need to have a good firm fit up that fits in with a little bit of pressure and can pretty much hold itself there even without the mastic. The mastic will help hold it and hold it even tighter, and then our wrap will be the final attachment. Right? So this needs to be a very good fit up job. What I'm going to do first is decide how far into the handle I want it to go, where I want the handle to cross here. Okay. And I like it right there. I'm going to center it by eye. And then just trace out where that little piece of the tang is going to, just a little bit further forward. And just trace out where that little bit of the tang is going to enter the wood. Okay. Set it there and make sure I still like it. Yeah, that'll be nice. Darken that a little. So that's going to be, that right there, that's going to be the first bit of wood that I remove. And I'm going to remove enough that I can put that little turn in, down in flush, and then I can trace the rest of this. Okay. So, I'm going to do that just starting with incisions with my hawksbill knife. And then I'll take this chisel and just gouge out that material. Now when you're working with elm, you definitely have to cut everything. There is no just splitting along the grain. Now this next down cut has to be with the chisel, just using hand pressure and rocking back and forth a little bit. This has to be with the chisel and as I said at one split there, we split a little bit. Split a shaving. I can glue that back in later. May not even matter, that's pretty small. That's just a little bit of that's just a little cosmetic blemish. Okay. Now I need to start. I can't get this in anymore, but now that's going to hold my piece. It's a little easier to handle. This little splinter that lifted, I'm just going to leave sit there. And I'll just run a little super glue underneath that. Okay. So I'm going to trace along here. It's not all the way flush yet. It's close enough I can get a line in. Okay. Again, we're going to incise right along that line with the hawksbill knife. Back to it, just as though I was chip carving, also with the hawksbill knife. always slightly awkward when I'm trying to do it so that you can see for the filming too. It's always more awkward than when you're just doing it yourself. Okay. Now, get this out of the way. What this is going to let me do, now that I have this marked out where that's all going to go and fit, it's not perfect, but it's kind of there, is I need to go and inlet this more. But now right here where the chisel is, where that little peg hole comes and meets with the rest of the slot for inletting, I can come back a little bit and relieve a little bit of extra material in there. Okay. And that'll let me get in with the chisel more effectively than without that. But I have to know where that slot is going to occur before I can do that. Okay, now we're flush down. So now I can refine that mark. A little bit. You take a little bit more out there. A little bit more out there, and don't touch that. This doesn't have to be cosmetically perfect because there's going to be a lot going on top of it. But it has to be structurally sound. Go slow, keep checking. Okay, that's pretty good. We need to remove some more from here. Just trimming the sides a little. Then I will do another down cut. Another nice thing about elm is it's kind of a compromise in hardness. It's much softer than, say, rock maple or oak. Definitely softer than that. But it's quite a bit harder than pine or basswood or your kind of traditional carving woods. I think it's kind of similar to walnut in hardness. piece I'm working here, which is kind of most woodworkers' universal favorite. Does vary from piece to piece. Okay, that is more than deep enough. My hole in here is more than deep enough. And from there, I just need to focus on getting this slot cut. So I know that needs to be deeper. Take off a shaving here. And if I go a little bit too deep here, it's actually okay because I can just shave this. Not a big deal. I left myself with plenty of thickness, far more than I'm going to need. There you can see our progress. Down. Good. Let's try a fit. Okay, I think that is mostly, we're mostly there. Just need to widen the groove a little bit. Slide knife to get into some of those corners. Cleaning there, not really deepening. Okay, where are we hitting? It's hitting right on that. Still hitting right on that. There. Hitting right there. Right there. It also kind of leaves a little bit of a smudge where it's touching. Shave off the smudge. Wiggle it around to smudge it. Where's the smudge? Now you can see there's smudge. Wait, I don't know if the camera will see down in here, but I can see smudge here, here, there. So I will just shave off those smudges. Just kind of cut down in those corners. And we have ourselves an inlet blade. Okay? So from here, I mean, you could see this is I can get it out. It is loose. It does need some mastic, but got to give it a pretty hard snap there to get it to move forward. It's a little harder of a snap than I really intended. Right? But, you know, just a little bit of normal use here is fine. Really good snap, it will come out. So that's the inletting process, and that's about the kind of fit that you want, right? You don't want so much tension that when you give it a little bit of a smack to get all the way down in the groove, that you're going to split your piece. Okay? There are a couple of little gaps here. There's a little gap right here. There's a little gap right there. And there's always going to be a little gap back here. Okay, because there's a little bit of a sweep to that. That is what our mastic is for, filling in those little gaps. But there is zero side-to-side wiggle when I do this. Okay, that's the kind of fit you need if you're going to use a traditional adhesive. If you're going to use epoxy, it doesn't matter that much. But if you're going to use a traditional adhesive, you need to have that kind of fit up. Now, the rest of this is just a function of carving. Actually, I could carve with my crooked knife here. Table's in my way. There we go. Okay. The rest of this is a function of carving and removing the wood that I don't want. It's going to be a lot to take off of the top. And I'm not going to film all of this, but I want to work on, taking off the top, kind of get a good feeling grip here. Then I'll work off these corners a little bit. But I don't want to remove anything from the surface here. Right? That's fit. That has purpose. A little bit of rounding, yes. But this is going to be sort of D-shaped. It'll be flat here and curved in this dimension. Oh, probably about like that. Okay? About like that there. So we will just work on this, and there's probably going to be an hour or two of whittling that I'm sure you don't all want to watch. So I will proceed with this process, and I'll show you the final result. Okay, so just a little update on how our handle is coming. This is the current progress. So I haven't done anything here on the side that has the slot other than just smooth it out a little bit. I did glue that little splinter that lifted back in, just a smidge in there. You can kind of see a line, but that doesn't bother me too much. And I've just shaped this to my hand. This is a function of, this isn't following any rule. This is hold it, close your eyes, ask yourself how it feels. Okay? And if it feels great, can you push the door close on? It's just blew open. We're having a very cold, windy day today. If it feels great, great. If you feel like there's something that might be a hot spot, that might be awkward, just shave it. Ask yourself, are my fingers going to be comfortable working with this as a tool handle for an extended period of time? And just work it until it is comfortable in your hand. I do recommend, if you're going to be a woodworker, a wood carver, that you start making some of your own tools, making your own handles, making these things that are really fit for you. There's nothing quite like having a tool handle that was exactly fit to your hand, right? Just so nice. So this is the shape I have come up with, and this is not done for any particular sculptural purpose. This is just how does it feel in my hand, in combination with trying to keep the handle as small as possible, because I found this sticky up decoration kind of annoying on the prototype, right? So we have prototype and we have the second one. Okay? More meat here, like I said, that is more comfortable and less sticking out the top. Now, when this is all done, I will do some sort of decorative carving, but form will follow function in that. I will look at what I have and think, oh, what would look nice on here, and I might just do a little bit of chip carving, or I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But what I wanted to talk about with the next steps on this is we're going to do a wrap on this handle, like I've mentioned before. So we need a place for that wrap to seat here at the base. I don't want it to fall off. It's going to get glued in place with hide glue, but still I don't want it to fall off. So I'm going to just kind of finger gauge a little line. And this is just by eye what I think will look nice, okay? Not taking a measurement. How much relief did I leave there? It's that, right? A quarter inch, give or take a little bit. And I'm going to make a shallow down cut with the hawksbill knife. You can see, if you're following along with multiple projects here, I'm not using a ton of tools. You don't need a ton of tools to make nice things. And now I don't want to split that out, so I'm just going to very carefully cut down to it. Nibble in a little. Very slight cut. This doesn't need to be much of a lip. Just needs to be a little piece in there so that stuff doesn't fall off. It can be very annoying to do a wrap when you're just coming against a sloping surface like that. So this will be where we start the wrap. Now I just made that little nibble down cut, and now I'm just going to come back a bit more and just kind of come into it. Just smooth it out a little, ease it in. You do want your handle at this stage to be a little bit undersized. So we're going to gain a bit of material when we put the wrap on. And yes, this is elm, but that's still a fragile piece of wood right there. Elm is tough stuff, though. Elm used to be a very popular bow wood in Europe. Some of the oldest bows that we know of were bog finds, called the home guard bow. It was elm. Very tough and very elastic. But still, it's a very small, fragile piece of wood. Okay. So I don't want to be applying any real force to the knife when it comes up against that. See, all my curls are staying there, and then I'm coming back, flicking them away or making a final down cut. So I don't want to put force all the way up against that little lip. Sometimes you need a little lip. Sometimes you need a little lip. I mean, my mama told me not to give anybody any lip, but sometimes you need a little lip. I don't think she was talking about carving a knife handle, though.
No. Probably not.
Wood carving and bad puns. That's what you get on Old Ways Rising Farm. Okay, just kind of shaving the whiskers here. How deep did I cut down? Not a full 1/4 inch. Not a full 1/4 inch. Okay. And the sinew wrap, you can sand on the sinew when it's finished. So if the sinew is a little proud, we can ease it over a little bit. If that lip is a little proud, we can shave it down a little bit. Right? Mm-hmm. So, but that's that part of the process. You want to make sure, now that I'm done with that, you want to make sure that this is a little bit undersized, like I was saying. There's a couple spots here I just want to shave a little bit more from. Even a couple things out there. I do want a little bit of swell in the middle of that finger rest. Okay, so that portion is pretty much done. I'll set it aside. I may decide that I want to fidget with one little thing here or there. That's pretty close to done. That feels good. Might do a little bit more. I am going to do a little bit more rounding right there. Cut that lip in just a little bit more. Okay. probably fuss with that just a smidgen more off of camera. Okay, and I'll wait until the wrap is on to completely finalize that. But you can see where we're going with that. The other part that I wanted specifically to show here on camera is the thumb rest, and I want that to be a little bit concave so that the thumb can really sit in there. So that's where we come to this here little European spoon carving knife. And I could do the hollow with this. But for really fine work like this, that's a little bit too far away and I don't think I have as much control. Right? So this is really good for, you know, the wing pads on a duck decoy where I want to get down in and, you know, shave a big hollow. But for a really delicate hollow like this, I'd like a knife where the curve is a little closer to my hand. Right? Yes, I'm mixing cultures, but I'm just a wood carver in my kitchen, you know, so I'm not specifically trying to replicate a particular culture. I'm just trying to get everything done efficiently and nicely here. And I'm just going to cut a hollow in this. And first I'm going to go for, does it look reasonably symmetrical? Then I'm going to stick my thumb in it and say, does it feel nice? It's okay for it to not be symmetrical. You know what? Your body ain't symmetrical. It's close, but it's not perfect. And when you're closing your hand, right, you have, your hand is not symmetrical all the way around, right? You've got a fat spot here, shallow spot there. The thumb is going to want to cant off to one side a little bit. So you wouldn't expect this to be perfectly symmetrical in its finished form. And I ain't making a wall hanger here. I am not making a wall hanger. Okay, so you can see us starting to come in. Okay. Now again, look how my thumb falls on that. You see how it's off to one side? Mm-hmm. Right? And so I'm going to cut down here a little bit and over here a little farther. I want it to look nice, finished, and deliberate. That's not the same as symmetrical. Yeah, and I said this before in quite a few instances, but don't be greedy with your cuts. Notice, I am not taking huge shavings. Right? Is this a view? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not taking huge shavings. Just little bits. Easing it in, taking my time. That's why I'm not doing all of it on camera. You get very bored. Just slow and methodical. Especially with something like elm where the grain is predictably unpredictable. Right, you could do 10 of these in basswood and the time it would take you to do one in elm. Evening things up here a little bit. Basswood is not nearly as tough as elm. Right? That feels good. So yeah, you can see I made that hollow out this side. Right? Now, I'm going to continue fiddling with this a little bit, but when you see it next time, none of my little fidgets will show in the camera, right? This is very, very fine tuning. Just put it in here, close my eyes, think where is it touching, where's there a hot spot, right? I can feel a little bit of a hot spot right there. Right, so I'll take a little off right there. And just very, very small fine tunings, okay? I want it to feel like I want the pressure, when you hold it and give it a squeeze, the pressure should be so even it's hard to tell there's something in your hand, right? If you feel a spot, even if it feels smooth and doesn't feel bad right now, if you feel a spot, that's where it will rub a blister after using it for a couple hours, right? So trim it off, be done with it, make it go away, okay? And I'm going to spend a little bit of time doing all of that fine tuning. Once I'm done all of that, and I'm going to do this off camera too, I'm going to take a little sandpaper to it and do the coarse sanding. I don't want to be touching this with 60 grit after the handle wrap is on. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm going to do some of the coarse sanding, probably take it down to 220. And I'm going to do that off camera. You want to see me sand? Right, there's the technique. Any more than that and you're going to get royally bored. So I will do that off camera as well. Next time you see it, which will just be in a few seconds for you, it will be sanded. It will have all of the little, not quite as perfectly comfortable as I want spots gone. And we will then proceed with attaching the blade. And so you can kind of see where we're going. We're pretty close. Mm-hmm. We're pretty close. So, I'll see you in a few seconds. Okay, we are ready to assemble. So I've done quite a bit of work on this handle. Most of this is the detail finish work, right? It's very repetitive, little bits of hold it, close my eyes. If it's comfy, great. If it's not, move a little spot. So you start to see the grain coming out nice. It's a really pretty piece of wood. And in terms of having some decorative element to this, I decided to take this piece and I'm going to make this into a beaver tail. There. So I'll do that carving at a later time. It's going to take a while for all of the glue and the sinew to cinch down, tighten, and harden. So that will be a later video, probably a couple weeks in the future after this one is posted. The first bits were assembled over a couple of months, but they're up, so I want to get this up. It'll be a couple weeks lag until I get the final carving done. So it's coming along nice. It fits in my hand nicely. The handle fits. So the last two bits that we need to do are we need to take our rosin and use it to bed the blade. So I have everything set up for that. I have this nice little warmer here on top of our stove. I have the blade on it to get a little bit warm. Now, I have it there keeping warm, but I can still hold this and it's not uncomfortable, right? I don't want to put so much heat in this that I draw any kind of temper color, right? It's warm, not hot. And then also back here is my hide glue, which you'll see where this comes in when we attach the sinew rope. And this is nice and runny, nice liquid hide glue. But again, I'm holding it in my hand. It's warm. We're like body temperature baby bottle warm, right? We're not hot. If you put sinew into really hot liquid, it will start to cook and it will be ruined for our intended purpose. So those are there getting warm. Now I need to heat up my rosin. This will take a little bit of time because I don't want to burn my rosin. Okay. And I'm going to grab the blade. Need a fairly substantial chunk of this. down here around that crook. Kind of keep that warm. Doing something that's hot melt on a large object like this is a little tricky. We've got to get it on. We can always reheat it. Itchy nose. You ever notice that your nose always itches at inopportune moments? And you get a good bit of this stuck to the handle. Now I'm just going to do the bottom here first. That should be enough. I'm just going to do the bottom here first. It'll squeeze up along the sides. Sure. Went in far enough. A little bit more on this portion. This good and warm. There's a very fine line between warm enough and on and dripping or on fire. We don't want dripping and we don't want on fire.
Pine resin, that is very difficult to discern sometimes.
Then we stick it in. Okay. Now, we have a thing. We're not done yet by any stretch, but we have a mounted blade. Okay, now I want to get the little bit that's gushing out the front packed in there. Do that with my fingernail. Now I'm going to come along and fill this whole seam. So we'll heat some more. I'm just going to pack all of the voids with this. If it starts sticking to your finger, just lick your finger. Pack it in, smooth it out. Using the side of the stick here a little. use in the world that smells nice when you're using it. That gap. Okay. There. We're getting there. Next thing, I just need to grab, because I forgot to grab it, one of my carving knives, and I'm just going to kind of shave some of the high spots. Be careful not to dig into the metal underneath and dull the blade. That would be no bueno. We do need to smooth it out a little bit. The next step will smooth it out more. This doesn't have to be perfect. It's definitely a project that will call for a knife sharpening once complete. That's okay. These are tools to be used. You want to be careful with them. They're still tools to be used. No point having tools that are just going to collect dust. Okay, now that's all good resin, so I'm going to warm this up a little. And just kind of pick that up on it. Kind of soften it a little. I can just smooth this out a little bit so I can put it away in good condition. It's enough work to make one of these. We don't want to waste it. So there we go. We're done with that. And we now have a cemented blade. Remember though, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Pine resin is not epoxy. Not epoxy, right? That in and of itself is not a strong enough bond to be reliable, okay, in use. That will pop out. Now, on one hand, if you're making something like this as a temporary knife, it's okay if it pops out because you can just light a fire, soften it, and stick it back in. Right? That's one of the nice things about hot melt, especially if you're making something for bushcraft and field use. Right? You can heat it up and pop it back on. Right? A lot of fishermen deliberately want, like, guide tips on the end of rods put on with hot melt, so they can pull out a lighter and put it on if they break their rod tip while they're fishing, right? So there are advantages to a temporary bond. But for this, I'm going to take this a step farther, and we're going to do the wrap. Now it's time for the hide glue. Pull it off. Yep, it's still, I'm holding this in my hand. It is perfectly safe. It is just a little bit warmer than body temperature. And I took my sinew rope, and it's been soaking here for an hour to get it nice and wet. So I'm going to squeeze it off. Okay. Okay. See that nice white sinew? Remember how ugly that cow leg was when we first started this process? But now we have nice... Oh, a mess. Can you grab me a towel? Thank you. I am predictably making a mess. It's my hobby. I'm really good at making messes. We can put that out. Okay. Don't have to stir anymore. We'll put it in there. So this just at this point feels like a wet fabric, right? It's a nice material. It's not gross. It's not icky. It's not revolting in any way. We're going to take this and we're going to dip it in the hide glue. Okay. So we want to fully saturate this piece with the hide glue. So I'm going to dip it and I'm going to wring it out. Okay. I'm going to dip it again. Kind of press on it with my knuckles. Wring it out again. We'll dip it again. We want to make sure that glue penetrates all the coils of that rope. Okay. I'm just going to kind of try to keep things here as clean as possible. There's a whole video on the channel just about hide glue. How to make it. This is commercial gelatin hide glue. Now we're ready to go. Okay. So I want to find the end that I knotted. There it is. Pull out the knot. It's already kind of come out. It's just fine. This hide glue will easily wash out. It's not bad stuff. Okay. So I'm going to take this end. I want to build up, the bottom is flat and I want it to end up rounded. So I'm going to start at the bottom with my wrapping. And I'm going to place that so it's about halfway up, or more like 2/3 of the way up. Okay. So kind of hold it there and then start wrapping. Now the ends, I want the ends to end underneath, to go under the wrap. So if an end is obviously sticking up, I'll kind of twist it, make sure you twist with it so you're not accidentally untwisting your rope. Kind of wrap them down as much as possible. You won't get them all wrapped down, that's okay. Some that you don't get wrapped down, because we're putting these wraps right next to each other. So if you miss an end on one wrap, you can catch it with the next. I'm not torquing on this really hard, but I am stretching it a bit as I wrap it. If you hit a thin spot, you need to retwist it there a little bit. It'll kind of untwist itself a little bit when you're pulling on it, especially when it's wet. Because it wants to kind of recoil back to its original shape. Okay. So I am putting some pressure on it. Anyhow, I was about to say, if you get to a thin spot, don't put quite as much torque on it. That little corner wrap down. There we go. If you have a thick thick spot, you can put some extra. Thin it out a little bit that way. See how it's kind of trying to untwist on me a little? Because it's wet and loose and trying to recoil to its original position. Oh, okay. Went a little too far along here. Not distracted while talking. When I get up to the top, the last little bit of the end that I tucked under is right there. I'm going to put a loop under it. You'll see what this is for in a second. I was talking and forgot to put my pull-through loop. Now, this looks really bulky right now, but this is going to shrink dramatically when it hardens. Okay. That's the end. Now I'm going to tuck just the end of this loop in. Actually go up from the bottom. Okay. See, I tucked that in there? Mm-hmm. Now I can pull on this, work that end down through and under the coils. This takes a bit of force. There we go. Cinch it in. Okay. Now you can kind of mold it a little bit. Don't worry about getting the hide glue up on the wood. It won't affect your finish. It's one of the advantages of hide glue. It will not affect your finish. Okay? Now, see, I'm just kind of molding it a little bit. This little edge that I caught, you see why that's there? It's wrapping. And like I said, this will shrink substantially when it dries. Okay? And I'm going to just leave this tag end, just leave that in place. And I'm going to set this aside to dry. And it's not uncomfortable now. It is definitely bulkier right now than I would prefer, but it's going to lose a lot of that. Okay? So we have attached a handle. The next thing that we're going to do is, like I said, just leave it to dry. Some of these ends that are poking up a lot, I will come and snip when it starts to dry. I'm not going to do it right now. But when it starts to dry and this hide glue starts to tack, so I'm completely confident that it's not going to slip around on me, I will come just with some nail clippers and I will snip off these ends that are sticking up here. When it's fully dry, some others will probably lift up. And again, I will just come back and give them a snip. And then anything that doesn't solve, we'll take a little bit of sandpaper too. But we will do that in another set of steps later on in a couple of weeks. Because this will take a couple of weeks to fully harden. When you sinue back a bow, it takes months for it to fully cure for the final tillering, right? So this this stuff, the drying of this material is non-trivial, right? It will take some time. So we have ourselves a crooked knife. And I hope you're enjoying this so far. I hope that you will go ahead and give it a like if you are enjoying it so far. And I hope that you will be inspired to make some of your own woodworking tools, and that you will check back with us in a few weeks when we proceed to the next steps on this handle.